Let's move forward to our next session, which will be delivered by Dr. Ramesh, Professor, Department of Biochemistry, JIPMER, Puducherry, who is instrumental in conducting this online CME. Sir has 24 years of teaching experience. He was awarded Most Popular Teacher to the first MBBS course during 2013-14. He is a researcher with publications in the field of lab medicine and has guided many MScs and MD students for thesis projects. Over to you, sir.
Okay. What I'm going to talk today is about something called evidence-based laboratory medicine. I think most of you must have heard about it. But what is the problem? Why I have preferred to talk about this? It's like magnesium. So one of the most ignored but an essential cations. Like this evidence-based aspect is totally, we are not using it. I'll just tell you, it is a just overview of everything. Okay. Sure. Clinicians are lab results for diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment. Of this, diagnosis is by far the most important. For upon it, the success of other two depends. It's not any biochemist told by clinician. Okay. Then, diagnostic appraisal study allow the calculation of various statistics that provide an indication of test performance. Then, how good the index test at detecting the target condition. This is what about diagnostic accuracy study. We conduct lots of study by comparing two markers. One marker is better than the other. Area under curve is better than this. So how complete it is? How complete it is? How complete is our study? Take what is EBLM? It's conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in laboratory medicine for making well-informed decision. Okay. Then what are the components of it? Like individual expertise, best external evidence, and patient values and expectations. Even patient values or expectations are included in evidence-based laboratory medicine. So what are the justification for evidence-based laboratory medicine? What are the justification? Why do we need something called evidence-based laboratory medicine? And even for information, many colleges and many universities have even developed separate department for evidence-based medicine, in which evidence-based laboratory medicine is a part. Okay, so constant requirement for information. I'll tell just an anecdote for this. We had a seminar regarding renal markers sometimes back. Okay, there are lots of renal markers has been just okay. What to say? It has been told that these are all the markers and these are all the conditions. Okay, so now if you want to go and see about, and lots of questions has been asked about individual markers. How this individual marker is very good, whether this is good or this is best or this is how time is not sufficient. Within 40 minutes, we can't go and tell about everything about all these things. But there is constant requirement for information. Then how we're going to deal with it? Then there is also constant addition of new information, limited time availability, the poor quality of access to good information. There is a thing. The poor quality of access. Mostly many of our people, especially residents, they don't know how to get good information. And what is particular to laboratory medicine? Again, limited number of pure quality of studies linking best results to patient benefits. Again, you take any diagnostic accuracy study and see. So how much it has been contributed to patient benefits. Such kind of studies is very much lacking. We don't have that much evidence. Okay, even we are telling about serum creatinine, we get cystatin, NGAL, all those things in renal marker. But so it helps the patient and how it helps in making a different kinds of treatment. For that, we need proper evidence. The poor perception of the value of diagnostic test, this is another thing. Okay, go to the lab in the morning, then you know how much blood glucose and sodium values are coming. The ever-increasing demand for tests, the disconnected approach to resource allocation. There's another aspect that we have to deal with the administration. Silo, it's called as silo budgeting, that we'll deal later. Then how to practice this evidence-based lab medicine? Ask, query, appraise, act, audit. These are the components. If you want to practice evidence-based, you have to ask, you have to acquire information, you have to appraise the information, and you have to act, and then you have to audit. You can see here. So you identify a question first. Okay, it can be any question, like a lab related question. Okay, like how I have got some examples I tell later. How beta dendritic peptide helps to increase the stay in hospital for a patient with heart failure. Don't only go compare and do diagnostic accuracy study. So these are other things. And further, you search for evidence. Okay, critically appraise the evidence, then apply it to practice, to audit, and if something is there, you can modify it. Okay, then what is the first step? It's called PICO. I think many of you know about this: patient, intervention, comparison, and outcome. This for laboratory things, it has been modified as CARO. What is CARO? Case. Anything. First, what are the patient's characteristics, condition, symptoms, anything related? What is the case actually you're taking? Next is assay. What assay procedure has been considered, or what strategy has been considered? And reference. What is the standard procedure? Is there a comparator? And finally, what is the outcome? Whether it is sensitivity, specificity, predictive value, prognosis, what's the outcome do you affect? All those things. Then these are the questions. Okay, when you're picking up any diagnostic accuracy study, anything, you first try to write like this. You read the journal, read the article, read the review, anything, whatever it is. Then what are the types of questions? First one is regarding diagnostic accuracy of the test. You can see a patient presenting to the emergency department with shortness of breath. How well does what I told, internal probe, beta nephrotic peptide, predict heart failure as assessed by cardiac ejection fraction by echocardiography? So here we have heart condition as heart failure, patient presenting with shortness of breath, and again you are comparing with cardiac ejection fraction. And what to expect from it? So that is important. Okay, instead of cardiac ejection fraction, we're going to internal probe beta type nephrotic peptide. What are the benefits for the patient? It can be accurate, it can be more sensitive, specific, everything is there. But how it is beneficial to the patient, how it is going to change your treatment or patient stay or your lab economics or your hospital economics. Again, related to the value of a test, improving patient outcomes. Again, the same thing. Patient admitted to the hospital for treatment of heart failure. Again, we're estimating internal probe, beta nephrotic peptide, improve the length of hospital stay and the rate of subsequent readmission for heart failure. Okay, so most studies can focus on all those things. That will give more important information about each test. Okay, they don't just go only for sensitivity and specificity or other things because they're totally related to analytical. But as previous speakers also told about critical decision limit, all those things, proper evidence for all those things. So you have to prepare and read journal properly. And even when you're designing a lab related article, do it. Now, how to acquire evidence? You must be asking, we have some evidence. How to acquire the evidence? Okay, before that, few words. So in laboratory medicine, an alternative clinical trial is diagnostic accuracy study. We don't have a clinical trial, though we participate in clinical trial as a supportive department, we don't have. But what is on par of us diagnostic accuracy study? And the best design for diagnostic accuracy study is prospective cohort study. You have a prospective and it should be a cohort. Cohort maybe in this case, maybe patient with shortness of breath. Like that you design. Okay, and then you can compare with any gold standard. And again, I have purposely put gold standard. Nowadays, we are not supposed to use gold standard. It is called as reference standard. Okay. And the important goal of studies of diagnostic test determine whether the new test adds information to the known from the patient observation or other investigation. This always we forget when you're designing any study. So what is the new test? You're doing some new test, lots of markers, but what is the information that it adds? That's more important to existing test. Okay, what information apart from sensitive specificity is there any new information it adds? Okay, then how to start a search? Original studies, Cochrane library, journals, clinical evidence, and finally your computer system. This is what. So the base is original study. So always look into it. If you're not getting into original study, then we move on to Cochrane library. But the best to start the search is looking for external evidence-based guidelines. Actually, there are lots of external evidence-based guidelines. Okay, there are lots of external evidence-based guidelines. You can take the guidelines and you can adapt it. And the search for evidence usually starts in databases such as Cochrane Library, which contains high quality systemic reviews or meta-analysis. So this is the place where you go and search for evidence. It is a Cochrane Library. You go to the Cochrane Library and then you choose what you want. Lots of evidence-based guidelines are there. If search is not successful in the secondary literature, look for the primary reports in Medline. Okay. So Medline, how will you go and search for this systemic review or evidence-based guidelines? The best single search term is sensitivity, arrow diagnostic test. Okay, you can see here, combined with corresponding diagnostic test, combined with corresponding clinical condition, and finally the name of the test. Okay, you went into the Cochrane Library and you found some evidence for some other thing. So how will you determine the level of evidence? The highest level of evidence is a good quality, well-conducted systemic review on meta-analysis of RCT for testing patient-related outcomes, and a prospective cohort study for diagnostic accuracy studies. Okay, what and why do we choose? What and why do we choose a systemic review? One was to be gained by a systemic review of available evidence. So it integrates information, it reduces data to manageable levels, and again identifies the limitations of methodology, prevents proliferation of studies, enhances confidence of the results, identifies cause of inconsistency, identifies new research questions. That is the previous speaker, and some are talking about gap analysis. So if you're going any systematic review, it helps us to identify the gap, and so that we can develop a new research question. So don't go and repeat the same thing which has been done by other people. So this is what review article. Review article is a broad overview of a topic similar to a textbook chapter. It's not moving. Yeah, often covers multiple background aspects of a disease, such as natural history, etiology, and so on. The article also summarizes the results from primary results. Okay, and to summarize are chosen at the discretion of the authors. Okay, review article. Next, we go into next thing. A type of review article that focuses on focused clinical question. That's called systematic review. The review articles have got variety of things, but we go for a systemic review. But when you go for a systemic review, a type of review article that focus only on certain clinical question or single clinical question, or chosen using a standardized protocol to minimize bias. Meta-analysis, a type of systematic review in which the numerical results from individual studies are mathematically combined to give a single overall estimate of the treatment effect. So what all the data you have collected in a systemic review, you do some statistical analysis and then you put it so that it's easy to interpret, where you can get. Suppose if you have a research question, so for what are the studies have been done in that research question and what are the values, everything can be brought in a single diagram. I'll tell what is mostly used for that. And where do you find those systematic reviews? In a Cochrane Library, it produces high quality systemic review. And PubMed, they are accessed from clinical queries link on the blue side bar of the PubMed. Okay, go to the PubMed and go to the PubMed services. And then there is something called clinical queries, journal database, MES database, single citation, all those. There is something called clinical query. You click the clinical queries and type what is your query, then you will get all evidence-based guidelines, meta-analysis, systematic error, review. And how to critically appraise an evidence. The three concepts are essential to understand the critical appraisal of systemic review. They are publication bias and heterogeneity. Heterogeneity is a statistical measure of the difference between the results from. Okay, the vertical line in the middle is the line of no effect. For ratio, this is 1, and for means, it is 0. So just looking at this diagram, okay, we can see what is the question asked and what is the odds ratio by each authors, and where is your central odds ratio is there, and what is its confidence interval. All those things you can take, and you can say whether how many studies are favored the treatment and what the effect size, or how many studies are not favored to treatment. So everything, here I have shown only some 7 or 8. Like that, you can have nearly for 30, even to 400 studies in just one page or one printout. So it's easy for you to know what is, okay. And you can go back to where it's not favored and how they have made their study and find out what is their problem, and you can analyze the gap there. Yeah, it's like this. To average when having an average meal, it should not be like this. Okay, that is why you have to compare everything and come to a conclusion. So how to detect bias? For bias, we have a funnel plot. Consider attempt to detect bias in study selection. Results of each study plotted against sample size. What do we expect? Precision in the estimation of true treatment as increased sample size increases. Small studies scatter more widely at the bottom of the graph, and in the absence of bias, the plot should resemble like a symmetrical inverted funnel. You can see here. If there is no bias, it should be symmetrical inverted funnel. Like it shows, like if the study is small, your values will be scattered. Okay, and if a study involves more, sample size is more, there the values will not be scattered from each study. Okay, all the values will be concentrated in one place. If it's small, each study can give a different values, and this is how we can detect bias. To tell you all those things, you can get in systematic review. If you go and select and Cochrane base and go for systematic review, all those forest plots and funnel plots will be there. You can see here. Some amount is missing at the low. Asymmetrical appearance of the funnel with a cap in the bottom corner of the graph. So what it tells? So some of the studies there where the sample size is less, okay, the values are not there, and you can see all towards the favorable side. So sample size is small and all towards favorable side. You go and check all those results and find out what is the problem. Maybe small sample size can be the problem, or other things can be there. Misguided statistics, or lots of things you can find out there. So this shows there's a lots of bias in the studies with the small sample size. Okay, then how will you rate the evidence? You have got evidence guidelines from some other thing. So I'm not going into details, you can read later. The quality of primary studies and reviews rating are from 1A to 4. The meta-analysis systemic review are at 1A, whereas statements of committees, opinions, reviews comes under that. Again, rating of the strength of evidence supporting guidelines recommendation. Again, it's from A to D. Okay, what we have to do is we have to combine an evidence table, publication details of the individual study. Just even in journal club, we missed this. We missed what is called as the journal metrics. So we say only the title and author, but lots of things goes into it. Journal metric, there are nearly 7 or 8 parameters. Okay, study design, spectrum of patient and patient setting. What's the spectrum? Okay, we usually say it's a multiple myeloma, or we usually say it's a myocardial infarction. But what's the spectrum of patient included in it? Age-wise, blood glucose-wise, lots of things are there. The spectrum is also important. Prevalence of the condition, the diagnostic use or compared, outcome measured, and the effects measured, including measure of the diagnostic accuracy. Common specific issues raised by the study, and quality rating and level of evidence. We look for bias. Whenever look for any study on diagnostic, look what could be the biases there. Okay, quality rating and level of evidence of the study. Okay, these are you've got lots of checklists. This some of the website for checklist where you'll get for everything. Okay, all types of diagnostic accuracy study. And there are lots of meta-analysis software, but it's free, like meta-analysis, Epimeta, EasyMeta, MetaTest, Meta, and commercial things are also there. Even we can do it with Stata and SAS. Okay, if you are able to use the software. That is what you can develop doing meta-analysis. It's easy to do meta-analysis only you have the data with you. You can do your own meta-analysis. And what are the promises of ELBM? It ties clinical practice to scientific standards of evidence, able to draw upon the objective experience of many researchers working with accepted scientific standards of evidence. So we can see what other scientists are working and how their results are compared to your result. It promotes uniformity, implementing cost-cutting measures, provide a scientific basis for the construction of public policies. Again, we can develop our own public policy based on evidence. Say we have a lab and you're generating your evidence. Based on the evidence, you can develop your own SOPs and public policies. And again, of course, it has got lots of critics also. Standard guidelines, disincentives for individual innovation. They say if you find establishing a guidelines based on evidence, and if you ask people to follow it, the individual innovation goes. Okay, becomes more like a cookbook medicine. Okay, like seeing a book and making cooking like that. Lower standards, we de-skilling practitioner. So are we de-skilling the practitioners? I'll answer later. Instead of clinical judgment, practitioners will be encouraged to use protocols. Okay, like algorithm. Incapable of operating effectively in diverse situations. Okay. But good professionals should treat guidelines more as an option. It's a guidelines. They're not supposed to follow it. You treat like an option as true standards and professional organizations do with other types of that you have to follow. Always, but you have an option, you have a guideline for you. Again, future. What is the future of evidence-based lab medicine? That's what I'm telling. Okay, so establish a culture for EBLM, even though many separate departments are you're still far behind. How? Change the pattern of journal club. You start from the residents. Okay, so evaluating a systemic review or even a meta-analysis. Even journal club can be even a part of MD evaluation. Many colleges have done that. So you make it journal club, give them a journal and ask them to split out everything in the format which has been told in evidence and ask them to calculate other things. Okay. Do we need a detailed statistical and epidemiological skills to practice EBLM? No. Then what is needed? Critical appraisal skill. Only what is needed is critical appraisal skill. Competent understanding of the strength and weakness of systemic reviews and meta-analysis. Laboratory personnel will direct more to demonstrate the impact of laboratory tests on a great variety of clinical outcomes. For this EBLM will be very much useful. And thank you for your listening. Okay. Any questions? You put it in chat box, we'll answer later.